This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set and cocked, locked. Yeah, here we go. Your dial's set correctly to USAPrepares.com. We're broadcasting live high atop the Missouri Ozark Mountains. Studio A. Your classroom reaches 50 states and worldwide on the internet. And we broadcast on Galaxy 19, the satellite. And you can listen on your smartphone. And there's a link to all of your instructors on the website, usaprepares.com. And if you need to revisit, refresh your memory, or share, just click on usaprepares.com. Converging threats are confronted daily by your instructors. I'm Vincent Finelli. Tom is producing the broadcast in Minnesota. Mike Parsons is with us. And Mike, you know him as Mike from Tennessee. Mike is a pilot, a commercial pilot, and he flies small airplanes and big airplanes. He's a farmer. Welcome, Mike Parsons.
Good morning.
Hey Mike, yesterday, you and I were talking about what happened at the Washington Navy Yard, and I wanted to share something. I did a little bit of research after I came back from the meetup last night, and NCIS. There's a national museum at the Navy, at the U.S. Navy Yard in Washington D.C., and that's adjacent. There's this museum adjacent to the NCIS headquarters aboard the Washington Navy Yard. That's what I found. So the way I read that is NCIS headquarters is at the Washington Navy Yard. Very interesting, isn't it?
Well, it brings to mind, and just going off the top of my head, 9/11. Buildings were brought down, and beneath one of the buildings was the largest gold repository in the world, holding over $250 billion worth of Swiss gold. And when they cleared away all the rubble, lo and behold, they found $50 billion worth of gold. Seems to me there was a lot of overloaded fire engines and emergency vehicles leaving the scene at the time, and no one really paid attention because of all the commotion. And on this base, they have nuclear warheads, and amongst all the commotion, how easy would it have been for anybody to get weapons off this base? You've got all these policemen. Now realize this is a military base. Where are the military police? All you see, as Frank Underhill mentioned yesterday, a sea of police and FBI and all these, quote, civilian government types of policing agencies. Where are the military police policing their own federal property? I didn't see them.
Well, I can tell you that when I was a child, I had a friend who lived on a Navy base, and the MPs were right at the front gate. Now, I'm talking about the 1960s. The MPs were right at the gate.
In the photograph that we spoke of yesterday, there's a sign right there, and it has some bullet points of the directions to different things. And there's item number 2 says Marine Barracks, straight down the road, less than a half mile. I guarantee you, had they rallied the Marines out of that barracks, they could have secured the entire area within minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, one of the things that I learned from doing a little bit of research, the alleged shooter, now I guess everybody's saying that they know who he is, Aaron Alexis, 34 years old. He played violent, according to the news, the internet reports I've been reading, and a post that I put on our website. He played violent video games. Violent video games. One is Call of Duty, and the other is Resident Evil. And he played them for up to 16 hours at a time. Now, if you think about that, how many people do you know who stay awake for 16 hours at a time? You know, let alone just being in front of a screen. And I saw a picture of the computer and the TV monitor, and it's really, really close together. I mean, he would be sitting right on top of what appeared to be maybe something like a 19-inch CRT. So his face, if he was playing at the location that I saw in this photograph, he would be right against the CRT, which would make anybody hyperactive, let alone playing these video games that desensitize anyone who plays them or tends to the violence on the screen. And by the way, the military was involved in the development of these violent, shoot them up, kill them, blow them up, blow up the buildings, bomb them, napalm them, video games to help desensitize our young people to the horrors of killing, maiming, wounding people, because you can always hit the reset button and everybody's all back together and you can go kill them again.
Yeah, they've got a lot of stuff coming out of Virginia Tech, home of the Virginia Tech shooter, and of course everybody knows that DARPA is right there, and there are two things that Virginia Tech is known for, engineering and mind control. Mm-hmm. And, yeah.
So I wanted to share that with you, that I read that. Mike, if you look at what might have been one of the reasons for this, if it were a Hegelian dialectic, meaning to distract us from the real situation. What's the biggest story right now? Well, I guess the economy would be number one, because that's failing us. But the other big story is Colorado. Colorado, more rain, bridges washing out, homes being swept away. About 19,000 homes have been damaged and destroyed. I mean, that's a really big story. So the weather's getting worse and worse and worse. And by the way, when was the last time we heard about that number of homes being destroyed other than a massive hurricane? So these storms are getting worse and worse and worse. And so, but that's not what we're paying attention to. We're paying attention to the 13 wounded, 13 killed, 15 wounded in Washington. Now, I know that is really a horrific event. There's no question about it, and I'm not trying to minimize it. I'm just saying in comparison, we've probably lost way more people in Colorado, but we're not talking about it because it's not as sensational. It's just water rushing downhill, washing away houses. So we have a distraction, which is this shooting, from the economy, from world events, and from the violent weather that has wreaked havoc on Colorado.
Controlled events, created events. I see Colorado as a potentially controlled weather phenomenon, unheard of, that type of rain that they've got, and that those altitudes, it's somewhat of an arid desert type of climate to some degree. They do get rain and snow during the seasons when you see snowfall and such, but this time of year it's basically bone dry. This is not the time of year for these types of events. You mentioned a couple of real live situations that are being somewhat overlooked. I look at the Benghazi tie-in, the fact that we had a year ago Americans killed, and people that should have been there to protect them at the CIA front house were told to stand down and pulled back. They were shipping in all types of surface-to-air missiles through this location to go to the Syrian rebels, which created this, they call it a civil war, but I see it as a military attack supported by Saudi Arabia, where the missiles were coming from, shipped via Turkey, and as the Turkish ambassador, I believe, was the last person to speak to our ambassador. And then you've got the Al-Qaeda connection, you've got the CIA running Al-Qaeda, and basically Syria is one of the last few nations that does not have a central bank. Every one of these countries that's been attacked has all had one thing in common. None of them have a Rothschild-controlled central bank. They all use their own currency. Libya, Muammar Gaddafi, viewed as a benevolent dictator. The fact was the people there had jobs. They had a good economy. They were using a gold-backed denarii, which was their currency, and there were countries looking at converting over to the gold-backed denarii as an exchange for oil, and they're looking at getting us out of the petrodollar. And in order to control the situation and put everybody under the lock control of the international bankers, the Rothschilds and such, you've got to eliminate them and put them on your fiat currency and take all the resources. And that's what I see as the big elephant in the room that is being overlooked. And of course, we were speaking on the fly yesterday. We were covering this as it was occurring and parsing out the information that we had available. Some of the things that I noticed that were quite telling, looking back now, I listened to the rebroadcast of your show yesterday, and I realized that for the most part, we were right on point. We had some speculation as to, was this a lone gunman, going postal, as it were, just a guy flaking out, or was this a controlled situation, a staged event, a false flag? And we talked about this photograph of this guy sitting here laying on the ground in the CVS, in front of the CVS pharmacy, and I noticed this after the fact. There was not a drop of blood on the ground anywhere near him or on him, nor on the people. Now, had this guy been a victim who had been shot, there would have been blood everywhere, on him and on the ground. Anybody that's seen a photograph of a crime scene where somebody's been shot, there's blood, and there was none. The issue of the police being everywhere, but not the military. And there's reports. All these reports where you have a face person, a person there to be a individual who is somewhat of an eyewitness. All of them.
Mike, hold that thought. Mike, hold that thought. We're going into a break. Mike Parsons, Vincent Finelli, USAPreparedness.com. We'll be right back. Mike Parsons is with us. Mike, we're talking about some of the images we posted on the website yesterday, and some of the images that we've seen. And one of them shows civilian employees walking away from buildings, supposedly to safety, with their hands in the air, the surrender position. So part of this Hegelian dialectic may be that we are being conditioned that hands up, hands up, hands up. It's happening more and more and more often. So there's a picture of that on the website, civilians leaving their buildings, hands up. And there's also a picture of the police. There's some with two-color blue uniforms, like a stripe, a different color on the pants that's blue, different color from the blue of the body of the pants, the legs, if you will. And then you see police in green. Now, there's an image of a police-type person, a man, and he has, it looks like an AR-15, short barrel, collapsible stock, pistol grip, the kind of stuff that we're told is to be banned. And he has a belt on that has all kinds of things on it. I can't tell what all of them are, and he has another strap around that has a two-way radio, and then he has a backpack with other things, and he has a helmet. He has goggles on, and a chin strap on his helmet. He's in battle dress uniform. But it looks to me like he has the word police in Velcro on his sleeve. So it looks to me like if he wanted to take off that Velcro word police, He could, and you wouldn't know what he was. You wouldn't know if he was FBI, CIA, NSA, city police, state police, county police. He'd have
they can change the narrative on the fly.
Yeah, and I've never seen that. I mean, in Vietnam, our troops had a sewn-on, permanently attached, stitched on their name. Their name was stitched on, and everybody could read it, and it was not removable. It's
common for these alphabet groups and people that are posing as military and or police that are actually alphabet group people. Well, they will have disposable patches with them so that they can, and multiple IDs, so that they can create the illusion of something other than what they really are. This is mind control, and realize they shut down Reagan International Airport yesterday. This is all mind control and slave training, just like when they declared martial law in Boston and locked down the entire city with thousands of hired mercenaries. They take your liberties to see how you will react, as well as allowing themselves to do other crimes in the area without the possibility of a citizen seeing them commit the crime. Remember, I mentioned 9/11 and the gold. They'll utilize these events, these drills that become hot, to do all sorts of nefarious things. It's not just a single thing. And folks, my good-hearted friends out here who don't think this way, it's taken me a while to analyze and realize there's an old saying, I have to see it to believe it. And for most people, that rings true. But you've got to realize at some point there's an issue of you have to believe it in order to see it. If you don't think it can exist in your world, in your mind, it doesn't exist, and you will ignore it, you will look beyond it. It's like all of the vehicles that had the light blue and the flags on them, all the emergency vehicles, instead of having a dark royal blue in the field of stars, they had light blue and orange stripes, which is United Nations colors. The slow transitioning, it's slowly putting that leash around your neck, slowly getting you used to the chains of slavery, putting their hands slowly down your pants. Oh, I'm sorry, that's TSA. And that doesn't happen in America, but it does. Just because it hasn't happened to you because you haven't gone to an airport doesn't mean it doesn't happen. So the reality is you are totally correct. The thing that I look at now, going back, reviewing yesterday's show and listening to this information, I'm interested in the reports of the people that are not being put in front of the screen. All you see are military types in uniforms parroting. You do not see anybody that was a civilian, that was a witness, put forward. And I go to this link that I've got.
Mike, hold that thought. Hold that thought. Go into another commercial. Mike Parsons, Vincent Finelli. We're talking about the U.S. Navy Yard. We'll be right back. Class, a lot of you are interested in freeze-dry guy food, and the freeze-dry guy is a sponsor of USAPrepares.com. He's never flinched. He's never wavered. He's never left us. And if you're interested in freeze-dry food, I suggest you consider calling him. I heard during the previous segment an advertisement, 40% off. I buy it on sale. I do. I pay the same price as you do. But I've never had gotten it as low as 40% off for the number 10 cans of Mountain House food. So that is the absolute lowest price I have ever heard. I have never paid as low as 40% off. But I do buy it on sale when it comes to the expo. But I pay the same prices that you do. But 40% off is a record number for me. I've never heard that number before. So that's the lowest I've heard. So 866-404-3663. 866-404-3663. Mike Parsons is with us. Mike, 3,000 civilian employees were at the Navy Yard in Washington, walking with their hands up. Authorities were there. The White House told everyone to obey the authorities, obey the officials, and it seems like that's what people did. But as you mentioned, the photo of the person lying down, obviously shot, killed, wounded, or somehow injured, attended to only by what appeared to be civilians, while the officials were standing there seemingly unconcerned with this person lying on the ground. Would you agree with that?
I referred to that person as a director yesterday, and I believe that this was all a controlled scenario, a staged event, a drill, simply because there was no blood. The people that were casually walking around, the civilian guy in uniform with crime scene tape, where is he getting crime scene tape? There are no police around. Military MPs were not on the scene. And as I mentioned earlier, and I just sent you a link to this CBS DC, which is their local information about the DC area. I pulled this up yesterday when we were talking, and I've left this up on my computer. Haven't shut it down. And I've pulled this up, and I noticed that their report changes. They will change this, and I've saved it 2 or 3 times because it keeps changing. Even though I have not changed the screen, they can go back and change it in real time. But the interesting thing is that I go to the very bottom, and I look for what are the people that were actual eyewitness civilians saying. I've got to go down to the tweets. They're not putting these people's information on as a direct interview. They're putting their tweets. And interestingly, there are 2 that catch my eye. One is Tom Brundage, an executive assistant with the Navy Sea Systems Command, said he and other coworkers encountered a gunman in the long hallway of the 3rd floor. The gunman was wearing a blue uniform. He was wearing blue, he said. And he said he then turned and started firing. Then Terry Durham, an executive assistant with the same agency, said she also saw a gunman firing toward her, and Brundage, quote, he aimed high and missed. All right. She said, he said nothing. As soon as I realized this was shooting, we just stopped and got out of the building. And then it says, around midday, police said that they were searching for 2 men who had taken part in the attack, one carrying a handgun and wearing a tan Navy-style uniform and beret, the other armed with a long rifle, wearing an olive green uniform, not blue, olive green. And you reported yesterday that you were getting information that there was a black man wearing a black shirt with a bald head.
That's correct. Black shirt.
4 descriptions. 4 potential.
Black man. Black shirt. Black man. About 6 feet tall. Black hat. Yes. That's what I said.
Right. So we've got 4 different descriptions at this point. And one thing that I picked up on another site was that there were people that were there. People that were not there. And they were told not to show up to work at Building 197. And this report says they were not to report to work. They didn't really get into where they got the information from, but they were just notified not to report to work that day. So there was a lot of people that were not at work that day. Kind of sounds loud. It sounds a lot like what happened in 9/11 when a lot of the people were told not to go to work. And you also had people in 9/11 that were told not to get on airplanes because they were warned. That indicates complicity, that people knew in advance what was going to take place, or that something was going to take place. And so they warned the people that they cared about. So it has all the earmarks of a false flag, a staged event, controlled operation. And in 3-level chess, you've got multiple things going on that affect multiple levels. And when people realize they don't do these things for just one reason, they have multiple reasons, and they'll have multiple. They don't have a plan A and a plan B. They have plan A through M or Z. They have multiple plans so that if one thing goes south, they will divert your attention, such as during the bombing event in Boston. At first they were saying it was some right-wing Tea Party kook, and they had a photograph of a beer belly guy with a backpack standing there looking like, Bubba without his remote and beer. And then they changed the narrative because it was debunked that he had nothing to do with it. Then they took the narrative of the radical Islamist, the two fellows that turned out to be CIA operatives. So they exterminate their own guys. And because this guy that was killed, this 34-year-old, is reported now that he was under psychiatric care, and more than likely he was on some type of mind-controlled drugs. You look at Sandy Hook, you look at all these other things, the Fort Hood shooter, Virginia Tech shooter, the Aurora shooter, all of them have the same thing in common. They're all involved in some type of psychiatric mind-controlled drugs. They're all military and or they're all involved in some type of government operation, without exception.
Mike, there's a post yesterday that said it was a black man in his mid-50s in military fatigues. I reported that I read yesterday that it was a black man with a black shirt and a black hat. And you reported today that there was a witness said that it was a gunman in a blue uniform, and then another said olive green. Now, that's impossible. It's impossible I think, for people to make that kind of a mistake. Was
and the
it blue?
FBI is now trying to pose the narrative that it was a single lone gunman and that they've eliminated all other possible scenarios and possible people. But the reality is, how hard would it be for somebody to go in there and do a bunch of shooting and then take their uniform off and walk out like a civilian? Mm-hmm. Wouldn't be hard at all. I mean, these blue jumpsuits and military fatigues that they come off real easily. Mm-hmm. Not complex. And, of course, were they doing gunshot residue tests of everybody walking out of the building? No. They were busy training them how to be slaves by having them raise their hands, give the appearance of this is the new normal. When the police show up, you do as you're told, you raise your hands and you walk out in single file or you get shot. And, of course, in the other shooting that they had with Dylan Klebold and company in Columbine, it's later discovered that many of the kids that were killed were shot by the police, special forces, the SWAT team. Of course, nobody wants to talk about that.
Mike, I met a woman at an event, and I probably shouldn't say what event. And this lady is a lobbyist who lives very, 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 very close to Washington, D.C. Might as well call it the suburbs of Washington, D.C. And I was talking with her and another instructor, and she allegedly is on our side lobbying for the rights of people to purchase things without being controlled by the government. I really don't want to say what it is, so I'm kind of talking around it. Mike, when I was talking with her, with another instructor, USAPrepares.com instructor, we were connecting the dots for her. And she couldn't handle it. She could not handle the fact that we were talking about fluoride, microwave radiation, food colors, additives in our food, preservatives in our food, immunizations, the restriction of freedoms, the confiscation of guns, the surveillance of our emails, cell phone calls, texts. And the list went on, and she just about melted down right in front of us. I am not exaggerating. She backed away from us, put her hands up in the surrender position, and said, I can't handle all that. I can only think about one thing, this one specialty of her lobbying efforts. What I'm saying, Mike, is I believe, and I'm trying to alert everybody to the fact that I believe that there's a difference between how people who live in the city handle things, how they handle adversity, stress, complexity as compared with those who live in the country. Now, you're a farmer and I'm a farmer, and we live on the edge of life and death every minute on the farm. We have animals that we have to think about all the time. So no matter what you're doing, you're always thinking about the fencing, the animals, the feed, the minerals, the supplements, the water, the weather, on and on and on about the farm and all those lives that you protect, save, and defend on your farm. I do the same thing. What I'm saying, Mike, is not everybody's wired like we are. And the ones who are not wired like we are more susceptible to the conditioning. Hands up! Hands up! We would be saying, why? What are you talking about? Explain it to me. Mike Parsons, Vincent Finelli. We'll be right back. Mike, comment on that, please, when we come back. Okay, here we are. Mike Parsons is with us. Mike, do you remember what I was talking about before we left? I asked you if you would comment on...
People have been conditioned to be sheep and followers. Their true nature, though, as a creation by the Creator, has been stripped from them. Their spirits are virtually dead. They have forgotten that they are the kings, they are the creators of the government, which is originally designed to be, well, they're supposed to be the butlers and the maids to do the will of we the people. Now, the government is able to do this because they keep you busy, full of useless things. Now, you used to have one job and you could come home and tend to other things. Well, now a lot of people have 3 jobs just to make the same amount of money, and they're just dead tired. You have to stop and reflect and realize that the government is stealing your land, your resources, and virtually your very souls. Let me ask you a question. When the boat landed on Mount Ararat, did a bunch of Chihuahuas and Labradors get off the boat? I'll answer that. The question was referring to Noah's Ark. The answer is no. What got off was 7 wolves. Of course, if you read the Bible, 7 of every clean and 2 of every unclean, and because these were not split hooves, they were clean animals. There was 7. One was a sacrifice. But anyway, the wolves populated. They flourished because they were independent. They only bred when there was food to feed the family. They only took what they needed, and they thrived and lived in peace and harmony with everything else in the forest. They were ultimately the caretakers of the forest. We are the caretakers of the forest, folks. We are the wolves. We're supposed to be independent. We're supposed to only take what we need, only reproduce when we can feed what we reproduce, and that's the design. And forget about what you've been taught of Little Red Riding Hood and Peter and the Wolf. Heck, they're rewriting history now, saying George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and Ben Franklin are dangerous. No, they were the wolves. They were the independent people. They were the farmers who took the time to be independent and do what they needed to take care of themselves and their family, provide. And then when it came time to stand up against a tyrant, they did. They pack attacked. Well, you've got to become that pack. You've got to stand in force against these tyrants. You've got to educate those lemmings that are following the government types that get a job with the government. Why? Because lifelong guaranteed employment. I've just got to show up and have a pulse, and then I get a retirement. You know, what a waste of a life. There's I don't know if anybody in government, but you mentioned a lady earlier who was freaking out over the concept of all of these truths. I know of a very similar person who was a government employee, retired now, who spent her whole life doing what she was told, and when I try to speak about these issues, her hands go up, and she freaks out literally. And so I have to stay away from her. I can't talk to her about these things because, you know, it messes with her mind. She can't envision it, therefore she will not see it.
Mike, that's exactly what I'm talking about. One of our instructors, who will remain nameless at this point, and I were talking with her about connecting a lot of these dots. And she just, we weren't even through like a quarter of them. And she just literally went to the surrender position, hands up, literally started the meltdown and backed away and left. She couldn't handle it. She couldn't handle the discussion of 9/11, fluoride, water, food colors, immunizations. And yet, she is a lobbyist for us. It's nuts. We have people who just can't handle the information, let alone what to do about it. I was talking with a lady last night who has some wealth, and her plan is to hire people to do all the things that she doesn't know how to do. She wants to be my neighbor. The final thing I said to her last night was, "What makes you think I want you to be my neighbor? What do you know how to do?"
Dial so fast, and your whole family would be her caretakers before you know it if she had her way. It's all about being independent, folks. It's being able to do it for yourself and take responsibility. That's where life begins.
Mike Parsons, thank you so much for being with us. I really appreciate it. Mike Parsons, USAPrepares.com instructor. Coming up next, Deborah Tavares, smart meters, silent weapons, the next phase. Mike, thanks so much for being with us, class. Don't touch that dial. We'll be back after the top of the hour commercials and news.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Watch the greenbacks tumble.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? This is hour number 2 of USAPrepares.com serious class right now. Very serious class. Pay attention, please. Deborah Tavares is with us. We're going to talk about silent weapons, smart meters. Some breaking information that she's going to share with us. Welcome, Deborah.
Thank you so much, Vincent, for having me on the program today. And I'm going to encourage everyone to go to our website, stopthecrime.net. I'm going to give out a phone number right now for those that are not able to download because of lack of computer access to download these documents that we're going to be talking about today, Vincent. They can contact area code 707-586-9558. Again, that is 707-586-9558. Now, everything that we're talking about is a free download on our site. That phone number is only for people that need to have the documents printed at our print cost and mailing fee. We want everybody to have these documents. So let's just jump right into this, Vincent, and let's establish one thing right now. In 1933, all of us, unbeknownst to us, were expatriated and became enemies of the state. Everything about us, our property, our sweat equity, our souls, were collateralized against the debt. Number one, that is critical to understand. So think in terms of all the corporate government agencies that are now a massive corporate setup, are deploying upon us. They're there for the bottom line, the corporate interest, and they have no concern towards ethics, morals, or life itself. It is the corporate bottom line. It's not a mistake that Johnson & Johnson just pulled their infant Motrin due to plastic specks in it. They just got caught. That's all that means. It also means when we see 27.9% unemployment in Greece, and we see the people on the streets homeless, and we see the children being stolen out of the neighborhoods and sold into child sex slavery and or used for body parts. This is real, this is happening, and this is going to increase here in the United States. And all you need to do to understand what I'm saying is read the New World Order Exposed document 1969 on stopthecrime.net. They they, the bankers, the international elites, the interdimensionals, whatever you want to refer them as, are creating profits out of mass chaos. That is how they make massive amounts of money. It's all corporate structures, and it is all put together by contracts. We are USA Inc. We have major banks and corporations, again, posing as a legitimate government, and they're not. Most people are living in an illusion of what the federal government is, and it's not what they think. This is why our demands are going unheeded. And the federal government is a corporation, I said that, with a vast network of corporate franchise subdivisions. And what we're talking about is all of the agencies, the World Health Organization, our Air Quality Management, the U.S. Forestry, the EPA, the FCC, the AMA. They're all corporate structures. They're set up for profit on Dunn and Bradstreet. They are not here to serve us. Congress acquired the Emergency Powers Act, which is ongoing, and reclassified the American citizens as enemies. And as long as the White House maintains wars or the national emergency, the president emergency power and our enemy status remains intact. So because of the propaganda press, that very few Americans are aware of the many military actions those who have sat in the White House are engaged in. We're always in war. And to that, I'm going to flip into the Silent Weapons Quiet Wars document and let you know what they think of war. And this is on page 39 of the Silent Weapons. And this is about the draft, a military service. They say, few efforts of human behavior modification are more remarkable or more effective than that of the socio-military institution known as the draft. The primary purpose of the draft or other such institutions is to instill, by intimidation, in the young males of a society the uncritical conviction that government is omnipotent. He is soon taught that a prayer is slow to reverse what a bullet can do in an instant. Thus, a man trained in a religious environment for 18 years of his life can, by this instrument of the government, be broken down, be purged of his fantasies and delusions in a matter of mere months. Once this conviction is instilled, all else becomes easy to instill. Goes on. Even more interesting is the process by which a young man's parents, who purportedly love him, can be induced to send him off to war to his death. Although the scope of this work will not allow this matter to be expanded in full detail, nevertheless, a course overview will be possible and can serve to reveal these factors and how this system works by computer analysis. And this is what they say. The draft or selective service is an institution of compulsory collective sacrifice and slavery, devised by the middle-aged and elderly for the purpose of pressing the young into doing the public's dirty work. It further serves to make the youth as guilty as the elders, thus making criticism of the elders by the youth less likely. They call this a generalization stabilizer, and it is marketed and sold to the public under the label of patriotic equals national service. So everyone, go to the Silent Weapons Quiet Wars document. This is on page 39. And understand that this is a document that declared war upon all of the global population. And this was a document that was forged in the late 40s by the U.S. Air Force, Rockefeller, Harvard University, and the international bankers. And they say at the beginning of this document, when a few powerful people with methodologies with the intent to control local economy and energy, keep in mind their definition of energy is everything, all living creatures, us. We are energy to them. So they were set then to control all energy. And they told us in the beginning of this document, whenever that happens, that is considered a declaration of war. So not only in 1933 were we expatriated, then named enemies of the state, collateralized against the debt, and have had the War Powers Act in effect, which gives the president sole authority to bypass Congress and to implement all these unlawful rules and regulations. We will not have any results if we stay within the current corrupt court system. The court system is set up as a collection system for the Federal Reserve. That is what the court system is. It is unjust. The court system only serves the benefits of the corporate agency structure. It has nothing to do with giving us any justice at all. And I can only tell you that attorneys, of course, will deny this. They do not want the people to know that all court cases are monetized for the Federal Reserve. And because of our propaganda press, very few Americans are aware of the many military actions that have been set. As we've just been saying, we're in a perpetual state of war. We're in a war here in the United States right now, every day. We're in a war by use of silent weapons. And I want to go to a very critical document that everyone needs to go to our website and look at. It's at the top of the home page, and it's flashing, and it says Mind Control and Electronic Weapons, and it will take you to a White House government document that our research team found, and it is entitled The Realization of Full Spectrum Potential of Government Health Spectrum to Spur Economic Growth. And this is the President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology, dated July 20th, 2012. Now, it's very important to understand, this is the ultimate enslavement. This is by controlling our minds, controlling our specific thoughts, our emotions, directing physical actions into unsuspecting human beings. This map shows you on page 12 of this document the end of free will as we have known it. This has been the ultimate enslavement strategy. And in fact, right now, we are in a pandemic of frequencies, and this is being waged right now. This is part of the silent weapons system. This is fingerprintless, and they have plausible deniability. Why do you think we have weaponized cell phone towers everywhere? Why do you think what we now call assassin antennas everywhere? This is part of the silent weapon, weaponized frequency system being deployed. We are enemies of the state. That is why the utilities say they are deploying smart meters on us, another form of poisoning and surveilling us and incarcerating us in our homes. Now, this is what you do about these things. I'm going to throw this in right now because this is absolutely essential. In the silent weapons document, they tell us that they win by consent. They say their primary victory is our consent. And we are consenting by lack of knowledge. This is on page 37 of the silent weapons document. Now, you have an opportunity to read these documents. Start by watching the Iron Mountain documentary on stopthecrime.net. I urge everybody to watch that movie as soon as possible. The movie is not what the actual document is, but it's an easy illustration of what that document is about. And then read The Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars and The New World Order Exposed immediately. Have study groups. Don't go out to movies other than the ones we recommend that you see.
Deborah, hold that thought. Hold that thought. Coming back, Deborah Tavares. StopTheCrime.net. StopTheCrime.net. We'll be right back. Class, Deborah Tavares is with us, and I'd like to say, Deborah, our class right here on the radio broadcast can handle connecting the dots, but I'm constantly reminded by city dwellers who I meet, they can't handle everything that's being thrown at us. I told a woman last night at the meetup, a wealthy woman, who's been coming to the meetups for 6 months now. She cannot handle thinking about all the things that are coming our way. She just wants to think and believe that everything will be okay. That is not the case.
Well, absolutely not. In fact, the pandemic of frequencies that is occurring now and being amped up, according to this White House document that we discovered, is unbelievable. And there won't be anyone that is spared unless you know how you can reduce the frequencies that are being presented in your environment. And we have a solutions page on stompthecrime.net. Just as people have obtained water purification systems to filter out all the poisons that they've been putting in our water supply, you now must look at ways in which you can filter and reduce the artificial frequencies. It's very important to understand that every human being, life is a frequency. Everything in existence has its own frequency signature, and every person, every animal, and every plant vibrate at its own rhythm. Pure, direct frequencies can help you heal, and artificial frequencies can destroy and damage you, and that is exactly what is happening. Again, this is the ultimate imprisonment and enslavement by controlling all of us, our minds, and this is a pandemic with frequencies. I can't state this any more strongly. It's up to everybody to go to the solutions page and understand some of the things that they can get. They go work directly with the companies. We have no monetary advancement or money making from this. These are recommendations that everybody needs to look at for themselves. Also, I want to say some of the key members and spectrum experts that are involved in this takeover of targeting the United States by the military industrial complex. Now, keep in mind, everything that is done and being done by the controllers, I'm just going to call them controllers, has multiple layers, just as this program does. It is not only mind control, but we understand that the negative ions will be stripped out of the oxygen molecules. That's why you'll see on the map on page 12 of this document an electrical fence around all the coastal states of the United States. That is because the negative ions, of course, are produced by the ocean waves crashing on the shorelines, and this will affect the entire country. Now, the reduction of negative ions is going to increase depression, mental illness. The ability for mind control will be easier. We've had a number of experts weigh in on this. We are told that many children will become very ill, as well as the elderly population, and no one will understand why, because the symptoms are a variety of symptoms: headaches, seizures, heart palpitations, fidgetedness, not being able to sleep through the night, a variety of illnesses, increased childhood behavioral problems with ADHD and ADD, etc. And parents will be taking time off work as their children become sicker, spending more of their income on their children, and reducing the family's wealth by having to care for these sick children. Thousands and many children will die, according to this expert, as well as many of the older population will die. And not only that, we've also, of course, found out that on page 12 of this map, of this report that has the map actually in the report, they say they will use the extended white space system already in operation as the starting system. Now, we know that the white space system for television is about mind control, subliminal messaging, and conditioning the way they think. And this is a digital silent weapon system that is being launched. We also found out something additional about the increased cell towers that are being deployed on some of the universities, the higher learning status as far as higher accreditation colleges. The more they become more mind controlled, and they deploy these cell phone towers on these schools with the microwaves on these campuses. This grid is a control ring, and the NSA Utah Computer Center is the one ring to control them all. And the Stanford University Institute.
Class, Deborah Tavares is with us, and Deborah, you know, the alleged killer of the 12 who lost their lives at the Washington Navy Yard might have been subjected to these silent weapons that you're talking about, because He was diagnosed with serious mental disorders, paranoia, hearing voices in his head, sleep disorder. But he had been playing video games. He was addicted to these video games, these killing video games where you shoot him up and then you shoot him up again and you hit reset, you shoot him up again and you kill him again. And here we have a man who actually might have been programmed and desensitized to killing using these silent weapons that you're talking about.
Absolutely. This is going to become more commonplace. They know exactly what they are doing. They are able to manipulate our actions and functions. That's why everybody needs to immediately download on our homepage of stopthecrime.net for mass distribution a warning to all first responders to let them know about their wireless communication devices that use pulsed microwave radiation and how that affects the brain. We are in serious trouble. We're not just now concerned about the ranchers and farms and the land thefts and the inability to grow crops and food and raise animals. We're now having to look at the reality of the stealing of our minds. And so, again, you can go to the homepage of stopthecrime.net. Right under the masthead, you will see electronic harassment, stalking, mind control, new leaked documents here. Go to that. Get this printed off and get this out to your neighbors. Explain what you're hearing me talk about today. Also, under that, you'll see a link that says microwave radiation frequency and Wi-Fi symptoms. Download that. Understand what the symptoms are. Do not go to the doctors when you have these symptoms. They will only drug you and medicate you, and this is all part of the operation of the silent weapons system. Big Pharma will rake in trillions of dollars upon the slow demise of our civilization, and that is what is happening. I also want to tell you something in the silent weapons document that will help to link what I'm saying together. On page 38, it says this. It goes on to say that the people know that they've created a farce and financed it with their own taxes, given consent, but they would rather knuckle under than be hypocritical. We did not know that. That is them blaming us for our own ignorance. They say we don't ask the right questions, but here's what follows. Our nation becomes subdivided into two distinct parts, a docile subnation, the great silent majority, that's us, and the political subnation. The political subnation, which are the controllers, remains attached. They remain attached to us, to the docile subnation, and we tolerate it while they leech our subsistence until they grow strong enough to detach themselves from us and devour us. Now understand, that is what has happened. This horrific takedown is evil. It runs on wars and terror, misinformation and propaganda, and dividing us into groups so that we never form a large enough resistance. So, and then until they leech everything from us, steal and murder, everything, take everything, and then they devour us. And this leads into something so critical. But I'm going to just tell you something, a few things very quickly that everyone needs to know about. I want everyone to know that the awards programs in stores, recently one of the major supermarket employees disclosed that the police came into the store and gathered awards card customer information as evidence in a crime to see if they had purchased any kind of alcohol so that they could connect that to the sentencing process. Understand, in the silent weapons system, it says if you fill out forms, if you answer the census, if you take phone calls that ask you if you want to answer a poll or if you sign petitions, this is all massive data gathering to go into the massive computer that will label the general consensus of society in order to massively mind control all of us. So to stay out of that system, don't give your data, don't answer polls, don't go for the free sandwich lunch system, which is giving you something, but ultimately you pay far more for it later. Also, I want to tell you what we have just found in our electricity bills in California, and if you haven't seen this in your bill, you will. But it's important to understand what they're doing. They're socially manipulating and disinfo on every single thing, and this is, of course, would be pertaining to the smart meters that are on all your homes. You must not allow these biohazards on your homes. This is part of the silent weapons system. So you must refuse, you must get them off, call your utilities, tell them you do not want them, and if they will not listen to you, you're going to have to decide the level of engagement in this silent weapons war that's been declared, and you are clearly defined as the enemy of the state, how much stealth technology you're going to allow to take your minds. So that is up to everyone listening, but I would recommend everybody get a legacy analog meter, one that is not a meter, an analog meter that can connect to the grid. Many of the new analog meters that they say they're replacing your smart meter with still can be compatible with the grid and have a wireless communication antenna in them. But this is what came in our bill, September 2013. It said this: understanding EMF, electric and magnetic fields. The results from many research studies have been evaluated by international, national, and California EMF research programs to determine whether EMF, which is actually microwave radiation frequencies, poses any health risk. Given the uncertainty of the issue, the medical and scientific communities have been unable to conclude that usual residential exposure to EMF causes health effects, or to establish any standard or level of residential exposure that is known to be either safe or harmful. This conclusion remains unchanged by recent studies. Found this statement. It's extremely important to understand that, because they lie in this insert that went to 5 million people in the Southern California Edison bills. They talk about how the World Health Organization completed their review in June of 2007, and the report on extremely low frequencies they determined was not a health risk. But they completely circumvent any mention of the most recent World Health Organization study of March of 2011 that says EMF is a probable class 2B carcinogen. So understand how they are lying, how they're putting information out to us deceptively, and then in this very insert in our bill, it says that it's our problem too. It says here, for instance, you can place phone answering machines and electric clocks away from your head or your bed at night, which you should anyway. You can increase your distance from these and other appliances such as televisions, computer monitors, microwave ovens, and you can reduce your exposure. They go on to say you can also reduce your exposure by limiting the time you spend using personal appliances such as hair dryers, electric razors, heating pads, electric blankets. You may also want to limit the time you spend using electronic cooking appliances. Now understand what they're doing. They have attacked us with frequencies that in the military documents with the smart meters say will cause 100% injury to all humans. And then they're now twisting it and now indicating that we can limit these exposures by not using our appliances. This is the insanity that is being thrust upon us. They say constantly through these documents that we have on our website that we ask the wrong questions. And the only reason that we do is we do not know what their plans are. The big NSA facility that Snowden discussed, what they said they would do in the future to stop future leaks is there would simply be no more humans. Therefore, without humans, there are no leaks. And this brings me to the unthinkable, and I know, Vincent, we're going to talk further about this in future programs, but everyone must understand what is at stake. You need to go to stopthecrime.net and look at the NASA war plan. You need to understand what they are doing behind the scenes. We're talking about the Brookings Institute. Type in the Brookings Institute. Type in the Tavistock Institute. Tavistock is about mind control. It's behind this White House government that I'm warning all of you about to take action now to reduce the frequencies in your home. And that means to not use wireless communication devices at all in your homes. Keep your cell phones out of your homes. Do not use them in your cars. Keep in mind, inside your car, you are inside a Faraday cage, and those frequencies are bouncing off the interior of your cars and dicing and slicing your DNA. Do not use these devices in your cars. And it seems very interesting that some new legislation here in California, and I know in other states, are saying that they want to now ticket us if we text or use cell phones in the cars. Well, people have wondered, well, why would they want to spare us from the dicing and slicing of those frequencies since it is a silent weapons attack? And most likely because they also want to fine us, get us into their illegitimate court systems, get us distracted, and create more laws and rules, and likely also because the dicing and slicing in our vehicles will injure you more rapidly. And they want this to be an advantage to the corporate structure. Keep in mind, we are in a corporate structure. Everything runs on contracts. That is why you can go to your local city. You can ask for the signed contracts for all these Agenda 21 programs. These are not just black shadows on a stage behind a screen. These are contracts. They have real paper behind them. This is the corporate structure. We don't need to sit there and think, well, what do we do? Well, what you do is you take the silent weapons document, highlight some of the paragraphs, go to your local city council meetings and your other meetings, all meetings, any meetings you can go to, and read some of the most important aspects out of that silent weapons document so that everyone understands where they are. Alert as many people as possible. We are under a massive pandemic with frequencies by silent
Deborah,
weapons.
hold that thought. Hold that thought. Deborah Tavares, stopthecrime.net. I'm Vin Finelli. We'll be right back. Class, Deborah Tavares is talking about silent weapons, and she's been talking about smart meters, and she's been on the broadcast for several hours now. Different days, different broadcast classes, and she has recommended purchasing an analog meter to replace your smart meter. I did. I paid $13.69 plus $11 shipping and handling. Total price $24.99. I bought it on eBay during the last segment. $13.69 plus $11.30 shipping and handling. Total price $24.99. So I bought one, and it's going on my house.
Thank you, Vincent,
And,
for
Deborah,
bringing that up. Yes, I also
Deborah,
want to finish up a comment that I was making about the universities. What we have now realized is that the universities are selecting the best and brightest of us, and now they're deploying mind control technologies, aka cell phone towers and wireless, in those universities to short fuse the brilliance that would otherwise be expected out of a university. Now, keep in mind, there is a cancer cluster at the university in San Diego. There are massive cell phone towers. Do an antennasearch.com around the universities if your children are in these military-operated regurgitation in FEMA camps, essentially, because they are dumbing us down so that they can control us. There is no such thing as, sadly, getting the level of education that we always thought was available at these universities. But I also wanted to say, in our bill here in California with our electric bills, they told us this too. This is a notice by Southern California Edison in Southern California, and it's an application request from our Public Utility Commission to return revenues from the sale of greenhouse gas allowances and to recover costs associated with this program. First, I'm going to say this is another lie. This is like our phony fiat currency that was always worthless. They now have us thinking they can buy and trade and sell air. And it says about this program to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Southern California Edison is required to sell its allowances in an auction and pass the revenue from the sale to its customers, air revenue. Less some expenses. Get that? Less some cost for administration and outreach cost. And Edison does not profit from the sale of these greenhouse gas allowances. So what I'm telling you right now is this is a massive hoax. Much of everything that is coming into our cities is based upon the need to reduce greenhouse gas and CO2 emissions. We need CO2 to keep our plants alive. Everyone has been misinformed, and you can go into your planning department, into your city, and you can look up policies that are based on phony, false, fraudulent science. And you must shout this out, because it's only a matter of a few decades with our children in school, if we survive a few decades with this massive pandemic with frequencies, before they don't know the history, and all our children will believe global warming is a reality. Just like we were never educated about the takedown and the identification of us as enemies of the state in 1933. But to this end about the frequencies, I urge everybody to watch a segment from The Outer Limits. It's a full episode, and it's called The Grid. The Grid. And I think you have that up online, Vincent, for everyone to watch.
I do.
Yeah, this will show you the intention of cell phone towers. Now, keep in mind, I can't stress upon it enough, cell phone towers are weaponized, and antennas are assassin antennas. This is all part of the quiet weapons system. This is also why, through the new Common Core curriculum being introduced across our country in all schools now, is requiring Wi-Fi in the classrooms. This is plug and play, ultimately, and this is more of a unbelievable reality than I've even discussed right now. And I'm going to go to the NASA War Plan again on stopthecrime.net. You must understand that they are identifying humans as too large and too heavy. They're planning to replace us with robots. They say humans have taken over and vastly shortened the evolution, and they are now going to direct evolution. And what I mean by that is they are blending humans and animals. They are creating super soldiers. They have the Jason Society of top scientists advising technological changes of the human species. This is going on right now at the National Institute of Health, at the Brookings Institute. The Brookings Institute's entire
Deborah,
format
we're out of time. Deborah, we are out of time. So if you'd like to contact Deborah's website, stopthecrime.net, stopthecrime.net. Class, above all, honesty and integrity. What happens